Okay, hello everyone. Today we have with us Miss Swati Agarwal. We are delighted to have. She is a manager strategy at Godrej Agrovet, bringing a wealth of experience in business strategy and people-centric roles. She holds an MBA from IIM Trichy, batch of 22, an MA in applied psychology from TIS Mumbai, and a bachelor's degree from Delhi University. She's also published a research paper, having co-authored a paper on the impact of demonetization on banking behavior. Beyond her professional achievements, she's an avid reader, traveler, writer, and a painter, and I'm thrilled to have her on the show today. Hello, Swati. How are you doing?
Hello, Shaz. I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty great as well. So, shall we begin?
Sure.
Yeah. So the basic format would be divided in some segments. I'll start off asking you about your corporate life. Then we will move on to talking about your MBA journey. We'll move on to the IMT section, which will specifically talk about the experience on campus, and then we will ultimately move to something that we have started this year, which is a rapid fire round on which you will have to be very spontaneous and very quick answers, right? So yeah, so I'll begin off with asking you about your role at Godrej currently. Just take me through how your typical day at Godrej looks like.
Right. So I'm a manager strategy with Godrej Agrovet. Now, for those of you who are not aware of Godrej Agrovet, I think we're a conglomerate within a conglomerate. It's 8 different companies, right from feed, animal and aqua feed, to food businesses, which is a milk dairy business, and Godrej Yummies. And then there are 2 agrochem businesses, and there is an oil palm plantation business. And I work out of the strategy office. So my role, there are 2 parts to my role. The first being aware of the market trends, the competitors, macroeconomic shifts, and in general, what is happening in the industry and how do we stay ahead of the industry. And second is about working with internal and external stakeholders for the execution of strategic projects. And strategic projects like entering a new market or optimizing resources or redefining customer experiences. And that's essentially how I create value. The projects directly impact the P&L. Right. So it is something that I have to work on very closely with internal and external stakeholders.
Got it. And this is the only company that you have worked for? Have you switched any company in between?
No. So after MBA, I haven't switched any companies. Pre-MBA, WorkX was with Mindler, which was a edtech startup based out of Delhi. Right. And before that, I have experience working with different NGOs in various different sectors.
Okay, so now that we're talking about your pre-MBA experience, I'd like to ask you this question of how your experience that you had pre-MBA was different from that of post-MBA. Like, what all visible changes and responsibilities you could clearly see, like the difference between pre-MBA and post-MBA.
Right. So pre-MBA is a lot of service delivery. I mean, you're more in an operational role where you're executing whatever has been done, right?
Right.
There is a lot less involvement of stakeholders.
Right.
Post-MBA, the responsibility of the role is much higher.
Right.
There is a lot of planning that has to be in place. There's a lot more data that you have to look at. And you're directly either taking decisions or supporting people with decisions. That was not the case pre-MBA. So I think MBA makes you think in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
To give you an experience give you an example from my experience.
Right.
I think pre-MBA, I was not doing pricing. I was not doing a GTPM. I was not working with so many stakeholders as I am today.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And what is your bachelor's in, Swati?
What was my?
Bachelor's degree.
My bachelor's degree was
applied psychology, and you did an MA in applied psychology as well. So,
yes.
If we talk about these 2 career aspects, talking about an MBA, totally different from, it's business administration, totally different from something like a psychology, right? So, firstly, I'd like to ask you, what motivated you to get into psychology, and then why did you make this switch from psychology to, something like an MBA?
Right. So, psychology came very naturally to me ever since I was a young child, because there was somebody in my life had died by suicide.
Okay.
And that as a child, I think is a very impactful experience in terms of that it throws you into a lot of questions where you're wondering, how do people behave? Why do people behave like this? Right. And it impacts everybody. It impacted everybody around me. While I did not realize the impact of it as I was growing up, it did leave me with a lot of questions. And psychology was a natural choice when trying to look for these answers, right? Just trying to understand human beings better. As I did my undergraduate in psychology, I realized that there is so much more to learn. I can do this a little more deeply. And I was also volunteering with a few NGOs. So it gave me immense pleasure to work with people. Now, when I went ahead and I did my master's with Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, I got a chance to work on the ground with people. So right down to the grassroots. And I also got a chance to go very deep into human behavior. I worked as a trainee psychologist where I worked with people trying to understand their problems and doing therapy with them so that they are more empowered in their own lives.
Got it.
That's why psychology.
Okay. Like why did you go for something like a business administration once you're done, after an MA in psychology?
Right. So, MA in psychology gave me a lot of depth into it. But however, along with a depth into one subject, I also wanted to learn more. So, MBA was to learn more. I wanted to pick up so it gave me depth into a subject, but the breadth was something I wanted to pick up.
Okay.
So, when I talk about breadth, understanding economics better, understanding operations better, understanding how business functions, how do organizations implement things. I think that was the motivation to do it.
Got it. I would also, I'm also interested in knowing how your experience at TIS, like TIS is also a very prestigious institute with a lot of people wanting to pursue their MBA at TIS as well. So I mean, it is a very big brand name and a lot of reputation as well. So how was your experience pursuing MA in psychology at TIS different from that of MBA from IIM Tiruchirappalli? Like how was the experience different? In what ways were they different?
So the experiences were different in a few ways. So TIS is a purely social sciences institute, right? So it was very enriching in that experience that they gave us, where they give us exposure to the grassroots. So to give you an example, there were 2 days of fieldwork, all the 4 semesters, and it was a semester system there. So 4 semesters, 2 days we had to work on the field, where the college did the tie-up with different NGOs. And 3 days we had classes. And there was a lot of practical work involved with that in terms of working with people, and in terms of then we had to come back, assimilate everything with theory, and sort of put together our reports at the end of the week. Now, while that was TIS, I would say, was a very difficult experience for me because it took us deep into emotions, our own emotions, into people's emotions. That was also what I studied in the course, right? Psychology. So there were times when it got very difficult working with people. I did a project with sex workers. I did my research into with sex workers. Being able to listen to their stories, hold the emotions there, and then coming back and processing things and looking back at your own worldview. I think that experience in itself was difficult. Same with domestic violence survivors. Now, coming to an MBA at IIM Trichy, the experience was not emotionally very difficult. But the content-wise, it was very challenging because it was a lot of subjects that we studied in the first trimester, in the first year actually. And these were all new subjects. So while marketing and HR came very easy to me, I think I had to put in a lot more effort into finance, a lot more effort into economics, because those were things that I had to pick up very quickly during the MBA. There were people from very different backgrounds, very different work experiences. So to be able to interact with them, to be able to learn from their experience in that hectic schedule that we have at an IIM, right? So along with the amount of case studies that we did, for every class we had to be super prepared with those case studies, with the readings in place. So I think there the MBA was very different, and it was difficult managing so many priorities together during the course and yet learning on the way.
Yeah, we will move on talking about your MBA experience as well. But before that, I'd like to wrap up this particular segment by asking you this last question of what is most important to you among the money that you make it in an organization, the amount of work-life balance it gives, or the growth and learning opportunities? And has it shifted since the years you've started working? Was it like something different initially, and has it changed, or has it been like something that is most important to you and has been constant ever since?
I think it's not about what's most important. I think it's about balancing each one of them together. So that is the part where I try to focus on. Has it changed? Not really. I mean, I wanted to create an impact during while I was studying in an MBA as well, during TIS as well. The idea was to have some impact, right? Along with balancing the money, along with balancing the learning and opportunities. So all of them together make a very enriching experience. And what gives meaning to these experiences is that the work is challenging and I'm growing in the process.
Got it. Really good answer. So with that, I think we will move on to talking about your MBA experience, and I think that is will be much more. I think I'll feel much more connected because I am currently pursuing an MBA. So I'd like to begin with a very simple question, and I'd like you to be super honest with this question. If you were given a chance if you're taken back to the time, would you still do an MBA?
Definitely, I would. I would definitely do an MBA. It's very close to my heart. Doing an MBA at IIM Trichy gave me an education. It made me learn so much. It gave me a family. I met my husband at IIM Trichy. We were in the same class.
Oh,
It
great.
gave me some of my closest friends. I mean, who I believe will stay with me lifelong. And it gave me a base to start my career in a different way altogether.
It's very refreshing to get such a perspective, because what I have, the kind of perspectives I've got from people is that you make the best of your friends in your undergrad, and MBA is much more transactional in that sense. So I think this is a very refreshing perspective to listen to, that you have made some of your best friends, and you got even your husband at the institute. So that's great. Moving on, I'd like to ask you the next question of, now that we're talking about rigor and curriculum, I mean, what subject do you think you were most comfortable with, you found the most helpful, and which one was the one that came to you, like, which was the most difficult, and like, how did you tackle those kind of subjects?
Right. So I think the easiest one, I wouldn't call it easiest one, but the subject I enjoyed the most because of my natural inclination was marketing. So I used to love the classes in the first year.
Yeah.
And it gave me I think one of the cases I still remember is the Dove Real Beauty case. Sorry? That we did as a part of our Dove Real Beauty case.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So we did this as a part of our first year course. And I think it was very enriching in terms of the classroom experience, along with the entire case studies and everything. And I related to it a lot, given my background as well, right, in psychology. So that was very nice. I think I enjoyed all other subjects very well. There were times, so a part of our course was during COVID, right? So there were times when I went back and I listened to any parts of the classes that I did not understand well, the subjects that I did not understand well. I would go back, I would make notes with the recordings because we had the chance of doing that. And wherever I found the difficulty, I did that. And I went ahead and I researched online as well. I went back to the professors. I tried to get the subjects I didn't that were difficult. In terms of the most difficult and the trickiest subject, I think business law, which is a very important thing to learn. I still remember the first case that we did, which was about doing your documentation right. Mm-hmm. So while it is an extremely important subject, it can get very ambiguous at times, and that's where I think I struggled a little bit.
Got it. It's been quite some time. It's been almost 2 years since you have ventured into the professional world. What subjects do you think are most important in the sense that you're applying them to real life?
I think in terms of real life, all the subjects that we studied at MBA. Mm-hmm. To give you an example, at least my role, which is strategy, it has mainly applied many different facets of it. So to give you an example, I think strategy, definitely. We studied strategy and we did an industry analysis and how to look at different industries. Now, to do that in the first place, we have to look at all the 4 P's, which comes from marketing, right? Then we also have to look at the importance of all the 4 P's. If you don't have a product, then right. What a product or a service, then what are we doing, right? Do we have a right to win? Then in terms of how the economy is doing, and in terms of, does a customer have that willingness to pay? Are they growing? How is the rural economy doing in the first place? How is that impacting customers and their spending, right? That's economics. And then there is, in terms of the financials, I look at P&L and I look at doing the budgeting and the forecasting for the next year. Mm-hmm. And where is the contribution coming from? Where is how much EBITDA are we making? So all of those things are very important business metrics, and they are needed in the corporate space to understand whether we are even creating value for our stakeholders or not. Right. Then in terms of the HR processes, so just the hiring and firing, how that happens, in terms of the goals and KPIs of people within the organization. I think I got a chance to work in a project where we were looking at the goal sheets of different people and how much effort goes into that. Mm-hmm. Then in terms of, I think, what have I missed? Operations, for example. So what kind of plant capacities do we have? How are we calculating plant variable overheads? Are we allocating it to different SKUs? Are we not? So while these are details, right? And I went into a lot of detail. I think to make a bigger holistic picture, it's these little details from each of these subjects that finally adds up to all the people who are working in that company as well as external stakeholders.
Right.
If we are able to, let's say, minimize costs at a plant, we might be able to offer the customer the same product at a better value, right?
Makes sense.
So, in a lot of different ways, we have to take all of this into account when taking decisions. So, all of them are extremely useful when looking at a business being run.
It makes sense. Completely makes sense. Okay, so there is this question that I think a lot of students would have, and I would like to take this opportunity to ask you this question of how would you say a student like me who's currently in his second semester, still have 4 semesters down the line to go, how would I maximize the effectiveness of my MBA? Or let's say anyone who's entering to the institute, what all skills should I learn? How do I deal with academics? And like holistically, tell me of how do I maximize my effectiveness of the MBA?
Right. So, Shaz, I believe it's very difficult to tell during when we're studying in what kind of a role we'll end up in. I just knew that I wanted to do something that I was very interested in. That's all I knew during my MBA. I think the idea is to get our foundations right, be able to be open to learning everything that the institute and the professors are trying to teach us. Okay. So in the first place, being open to that learning is very important. And then working hard to get our concepts right. If our concepts are right, then we can build on top of them as and when needed. We can go back to those frameworks. I believe we need to work hard during these times because it will help. It prepares us to navigate any difficult time after we get out of an MBA. So this is more from the academics perspective. For me also and for everybody, I believe it's also about learning from our peers, being able to communicate better with peers, with professors, at being able to maximize the experiences we had during that time, and developing the social skills as well. Okay. So I think that's also something that we should definitely do during an MBA and build a lot of confidence and resilience to be able to go into the real world. And whenever we face challenges, all of this will sort of act as a very good base to navigate anything that comes.
Got it. And I mean, are there any particular industry trends or certifications that one should go for? I mean, that are industry requirements that one should be prepared with before landing into the corporate world. Are there any such things that you have encountered or you would know and would like to suggest the students?
So I don't know. I mean, there are a couple of things, but first and foremost, I think when we are in college, we live in our own bubble at times. So one thing to definitely do is not live in that bubble and look at the country that we work in as a whole. Right?
I'm sorry, what exactly do you mean when you say we live in a bubble? Right. Can you please elaborate on that?
When I say sometimes we tend to, and all of us, I believe, we tend to go in a bubble and believe that life is how we and our peer group looks at life. Right? Now, when we look at the entire country and the larger market in that sense, there are different kinds of people and there are different walks of people. India is a rich country, but it is also a developing country. And life is very different for a lot of these people. So I had the opportunity to work with farmers. I had the opportunity to work with people at the grassroots. So while I'm not saying that everybody needs to go and do this, it's good to be aware about the different aspects of our country. That in itself is a perspective that will come of use. Apart from this, it's the more generic things like being able to read the transcripts for different company investor presentations that happen, being able to read a lot of data, both qualitative and quantitative. So being able to read the newspaper very often and connecting the dots. However, if we do not have an open mind to learning.
When one is doing his MBA, there is a lot of stress that comes along because you have to manage academics and you have to manage your SIPs and so many things that comes to you all at once, and it becomes very overwhelming for anyone who's stepping into something like an MBA. So how was your experience like, and how did you manage this pressure that comes along with an MBA, and how did you tackle with all of it?
So I think it was a lot of pressure, but it was also fun. So I believe it was because of my friends, because of my peers that I was able to manage all the pressure that came during an MBA. Right. So there were peers who came from so many different backgrounds who could help me with each of these different subjects. So I still remember there was a friend with whom I would study finance. There was a friend with whom I would study operations. And similarly, even in terms of the extracurriculars that we did, I was a part of Alumni committee. So wherever there was work there, the part that we were working in groups, I think that was the most beautiful part, and deriving more support from people along with having our priorities right, because we can't do everything. We have to prioritize. So any particular day, let's say, just give me 1 second. I'm so sorry. There was some background noise. Yeah. So being able to sort of learn from the people around me, creating support systems, as well as having my priorities, right? What are the 3 things I want to get at?
Got it. Okay, now that you have spoken a lot about your MBA experience, I'd like to dive in talking about particularly about your IIM Trichy experiences, and I think it would be a lot of fun to talk about that. To begin with, I would like to ask you this particular question of what is this one thing that you would have done differently if you're taken back in time to your MBA days? Is there anything that you would have done differently?
I think so, yes. So in terms of my MBA experience, I genuinely feel I could have participated in more case study competitions.
Okay.
So all the business case studies that happen, they're a very good chance to learn more about different industries, put together solutions in groups and present them. There is a platform available. So that's something I would want to have done more during my MBA at least.
Got it. And I mean, you must have participated in a lot of case competitions, right? I mean, as a part of your, like during your MBA time. So how did you, use to approach these case comms? And I mean, are there any particular segments or, particular domains which you were more interested in? If, in the sense that if a case com of this particular domain comes around, I'll, take it in and I'll try to, give the more amount of time to these kind of case comms.
So I think I tried to participate. So I would say I could have participated more than I did back then. But the idea to sort of go ahead and participate in any case competition, back then the way I looked at it and now how I look at it are very different. I think the couple of case competitions that I worked really hard for, the idea was to be able to understand exactly what's happening in the industry.
Right.
With a lot of resources that the college gave us. So we have access to so many resources like the Bloomberg terminal, right? So there's a lot of data available to us. And very often, I also did not know how to make use of that data very well. So taking help from seniors, taking help from professors, then being able to read more. There's a lot of data available online. So being able to read and understand, if somebody is looking for it, there's a lot of data available online. Being able to read all of that data, process it, and put it together in terms of a solution.
Got it.
And that solution, companies are looking for solutions from people like us. So those are the kind of case studies that are very, very enriching when we get a chance to do that.
Got it. I mean, it all makes sense, but I think with a lot of case competitions coming along our way, it gets very difficult to manage all of them. You said that you view it very differently now than you used to view back in your days, right? So I think that is the kind of problem we are facing exactly in your shoes. Is there any insights or suggestions that you would like to give the students who are currently having these case competitions? Like, how is your perspective changed of looking at these case competitions, and like what all insights that you have gathered now could help us? Any insights that you might have?
Right. So I think what has changed, one, we can't participate in everything. You will have to pick and choose based on your strengths, based on the strengths of the group, based on the problem statement at hand. So that picking and choosing, like I said, you have to prioritize. But in terms of how to look at it differently, I think at that time, the way I look at an industry now, after 2 years of experience, 2.5 years of experience, is very different from how I looked at any industry then. It is also, a lot of it is about listing down your stakeholders in the first place, understanding what each stakeholder wants. And when I say stakeholders, there are internal stakeholders and external stakeholders for any business, right? So what does each of the stakeholder want? What are their priorities? Then going back to the problem, getting data about it, being able to structure that data in a solution in terms of the larger industry. So when I talk about stakeholders, so I'll give you an example. There was, I think, one case study where we had to look at, we had to pick one brand from each of the, I think it was the HUL case study.
Okay.
We had to pick up one brand from their entire portfolio and talk about what we can do in that particular brand. And I think there was a lot of focus on, I don't remember the exact statement, but it was around health, nutrition, and there were a couple of things that they had given us.
Right.
So, which they wanted to focus on. Those were their priorities at that time. So, the team that had won had picked up, and it was not, when you're looking back, it feels like we could have done that too. The team that had won the competition had picked up, I think, Bonvita and had or Horlicks, I'm not sure. Horlicks actually, not Bonvita. I think they had picked up Horlicks or it was any other drink. Then they had went ahead and spoken about how COVID and digital screens are impacting vision for people.
Okay.
And how that particular drink can be enriched with vitamins and everything. For one, at the product side, and second, for people to be able to take better care of their eyes. And that is something that was a trend at that time because that was a genuine problem that people were facing.
Right.
So being able to catch this as a problem and being able to sort of do the solutioning around it in such a way that the company is also benefited as well as the customer is also getting something out of it. I think that those are the solutions which are very enriching in that sense for the company as well as for the students also who worked on it.
That makes sense. I mean, now when I listen to it, it sounds very simple, but to come up with such an insight is the challenge, is the real challenge. It sounds very simple, but then it definitely impacts the company and all the people around as well. So yeah.
I think even there, I'm not sure what exactly was the process they followed, but I remember reading how they spoke, how they read online a lot about it. Then they did a lot of secondary research, and then they went and spoke to a couple of eye doctors as well, spoke to a few families about how is it impacting the children and what are their concerns. So being able to then document what exactly does your stakeholders want, like I was saying earlier, right?
Okay, with that, now I would like to move to the next question, which is around your participation in clubs and committees. And as I know that you were a part of the alumni committee itself, I would like you to share your experience at alumni committee.
Right, so I think it was a very beautiful experience being able to play a role talking in creating a bridge between alumni and the current students.
Right.
It was something I had a lot to learn from.
Right.
So to give you an example, there was a event that we did for I think 2000 batch,
right,
13 and 14 batch,
right,
which were the first two batches of IIM Trichy, right? So it was very nice going back to the alumni, understanding how are they in their lives right now, what is it that the institute can do for them, then bringing them back to the campus. It was an online event because there were a lot of COVID restrictions still.
Yeah.
But just being able to bring them together on one platform, sort of planning that entire event out. So both from an institute's perspective and from the alumni perspective, being able to bridge that was a very good experience. It made me learn how to work better in groups. Each one of us had different strengths, which we worked on. So definitely that was also an experience. And I believe any institute is also known by its alumni. If the alumni do very well in their lives, it comes back to the institute. And if the institute is doing very well, that also goes back to the alumni. So it's a relationship that never ends. Definitely. And I'm glad I was a part of that relationship.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is 10-year reunion, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have that coming along our way as well, and the work is at its full pace, and we're pretty excited about it as well. So yeah, I think that is something we definitely can relate on. So yeah, moving on to the next question, I think I'd like to ask you this question, which we definitely ask all our alumni and all people around. What has been your most cherished memory at IIM Trichy?
I think the most cherished memory at IIM Trichy was the time I spent by the lake talking to my friends.
Okay.
And it was about anything and everything. Those were conversations where each of us learned and each of us grew.
Got it. Yeah. Lakeside is definitely a place where a lot of people, like to hang out. And this is one response that I've got across from so many people. When I ask them what is the favorite spot on the campus, Lakeside is definitely their answer because it's such a beautiful view out there. And I could definitely understand, the kind of conversations you would have had with your friends at that point in time, because that is such a place where you can have so many different kind of conversations. And yeah, it definitely makes sense. Okay, and my next question would be around understanding that did the IIM tag actually help you in any way? I mean, were you treated differently from those around you who did not have this particular tag? Did it help you in any way ultimately?
I think it does help in terms of the fact that it opens doors for you. It gives people, it gives you a chance to talk to people, which otherwise may not happen. So the IIM tag definitely helps there. However, does it change anything in life per se? Does it make life a little easier? I don't know. I believe it does give you something to fall back on in terms of everything that you've learned and the kind of associations you have with the institute.
Right.
But overall, apart from that base and opening doors, I think it's you who navigates.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense.
But it opens doors.
Definitely, yeah. Okay, so my next question would be to understand about your batchmates. Is there any person who inspired you from your batch, and who are those people? I would love to know.
Right. So I think one person who inspired me a lot from my batch is Pawan. So Pawan is somebody who is a hotel management graduate who entered IIM Trichy and did his MBA from IIM Trichy. And the thing that inspired me the most about him was how he interacted with people.
Okay.
The way he was with people, being able to have so many people and being able to understand what motivates each one of them. And till today, the number of relationships he's built, I think that's beautiful. That's Pawan. And also the part where it was also difficult for him to navigate the MBA after a hotel management experience.
Right.
So the kind of experiences we had on campus, he would be able to strike up a conversation not just with the people of the batch, but with professors, but with the staff at IIM Trichy, the admin staff, everybody.
Okay.
Right? So each and every person there. That's one person. Apart from that, I think there were a lot of other people also who inspired me in our batch, who had a lot of domain experience in their own domains, and they could go so much deeper into their own, into the way they looked at things. So one more person who sort of inspired me a lot was Roop. I think Roop came from a background where he was an engineer in the Indian Air Force.
Okay.
Yes, in the armed forces, he was an engineer. And then from there, being in an IIM, being like sort of learning with all of us, it was a very inspiring career pivot there. Seeing him just sort of pick up new skills, that was really nice.
Got it. Yeah, that is the beauty of IIM Trichy. You have people from so many different backgrounds. Even we have people who be total management, be people from the army as well. So this kind of diversity that you get at an institute like an MBA institute is definitely unparalleled because so many perspectives, so many ideas that you get to learn from, and yeah, it all makes sense. And would you like to suggest some people to us whom we could interview next for this KYA series?
So I think one person you should interview is Chorokape. So Chorokape is somebody from our batch who is building his own startup now. It's a tea startup. It's Kapime that he's building. And the amount of energy and the way he brings it together for everybody and the kind of insight he has is very different from everybody. He's one person for sure that you should interview.
Definitely would like to connect him, and we would like to definitely have him on the show because we are definitely trying to have someone who's working out on his or her own venture, because it would be a completely different set of experience that they would have. So I think definitely would love to connect with the person that you just mentioned, and let's discuss about that.
Apart from that, all of these people, I think Pawan, Roop, Paras was also, he was into the Indian post office and then he pivoted and came into doing an MBA. Then there were so many people like this. There are so many people that you can go back to and interview with.
Okay, sure. I'll definitely connect with you on that, and we would definitely have someone from your batch for an interview next week. So I think that is pretty much sums up the kind of amount of questions that I had for you. And we would now move on to the final segment of the interview, which is the rapid fire round, wherein you will have to be very spontaneous with the answer. I'll ask you a couple of questions. You'll have to be very spontaneous with the answers. But before moving on to that particular segment, is there any question that you would like to ask me?
Not really. I mean, how's the experience at present? How's everybody experiencing IIM Trichy right now? And I believe that's something that will always connect me to my alma mater. So definitely. How is it?
It's going great. I mean, like initially it was very overwhelming to cut down on the amount of hours you sleep, to attending early 8:15 classes. All of it, it was very overwhelming. But I think over time we we got a hold of it, and I think it's the whole journey has been beautiful. We have been, beat the curriculum, the kind of things that I got to learn was in the very first class. In fact, I got some really great insights, which kept on like I kept on getting all these insights across these classes, and then to visit so many different places around to explore this part of the country is something that is definitely, a lot of memories, I would say. Right. So yeah, I think with that, we will move on to the rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Yes, sure.
Sure. So, okay, got it. Three must visit restaurants, cafes in Trichy.
I think Cake Bee, Critics Poetry Cafe, and Sangeeta's. Those are the three places where we really loved the food.
First year or second year?
First year for acads, second year for the building relationships and the peer relationships that we had and having the fun we had.
Okay. IIM Trichy at daytime or nightlife at IIM Trichy?
Definitely the nightlife at IIM Trichy.
I can relate, yeah. Walking or
cycling?
Cricket or football?
Cricket.
Three things that you enjoy doing the most?
I think the Trichy skies and the kind of shades that they had, conversations on long walks with a lot of different people from my batch and your batch. And I used to paint at IIM Trichy as well. So I used to do a lot of painting then also. So I used to love painting in the campus.
Got it. Best spot on the campus?
I already mentioned this.
Yeah, you mentioned. Subject that you love the most?
Marketing.
Subject that you hated the most?
I did not hate any subject. I tried to pick up anything and everything. But the trickiest subject was business law because it got very ambiguous at times.
Okay. Best event on the campus?
Ruba, the fest, IIM Trichy Fest. There was a comedian in place. There was concert of sorts that we had. There were musicians in place basically, and we had a lot of fun.
Okay, yeah. Best item served in the mess at your time?
Chicken biryani on Sundays. So we would get up and we would wait for Sunday to have chicken biryani.
Yeah, today's a Sunday and I was just coming from the mess before.
It's still served there?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Who's your favorite professor?
That's a tricky one. I think Mukundan sir, Satish sir, Vinu sir, Sirish sir, Shivkumar sir, advanced Excel. I think I had to come back and pick it up in my office. But I wish I would have picked that up during the MBA. Just being very comfortable with the muscle memory and being able to navigate Excel.
Right.
I would have loved to learn that during the campus.
Right. Yeah. So I think with that, I come to the end of this beautiful interview. I had a really good time talking to you about so many things. And there were so many things that we learned. And I think students would love this interview and, would get to learn a lot from your experiences. And thank you for doing this, Swati. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Shaz. Thanks a lot.